Okay, well, welcome to another of the Workers Harder group sessions. So this one follows on from the previous. We talked last week. We talked very much around the area of project sponsorship, and it's a big topic. So we agreed that we would continue this week. But equally, I'm always interested in having thoughts from you, the group members, of what it is you'd like to talk about, and we come back to that towards the end. Back to strategies for project sponsorship, part 2. And if you remember, I talked last week, if you were on the call. If you weren't, you can go and listen to the recording. That's something you can enjoy. There was a challenge with project sponsorship these days. And I do like, when I do kind of keynote presentations, it's always good to have some big hitting messages. And that's what I'm going to kick off right now. So there was a question was asked: why CEOs, what chief executive officers, why the people at the very top of organisations got fired. It was a 4-year study done by Leadership IQ. You can see it's over 1,000 board members, public, private businesses, healthcare organisations, etc. They undertook to understand why the CEOs got fired in the first place. And the results of this, obviously this is stated, but they said that there was the chief executives were tolerating low performers. That was a reason to get fired. They were ignoring their customers. I mean, that is obviously a terrible situation to be in. And these came out as number 2 in the charts there. Too much talk and not enough action. They talked the talk, but they didn't walk the walk, as the Americans love to say. That's quite high as well. And denying reality, which is, I think, is a fascinating category. Just ignoring what was going on, I suppose, head in the sand. These are all reasons that the CEO got fired, but the number one reason the CEO got fired is probably the most interesting of all, and that is mismanaging change. And the reason they got fired most often was the fact they just didn't step through properly on managing change. And that's about projects. That's about when I talk about the connection between the C-level executives to the change inside the organisation, whether they be project managers or whether they be people doing projects as usual as part of their day-to-day job. The connection really comes from commitment at the top, skills at the lower level. In the middle is this important layer of project sponsorship. And CEOs who get fired for mismanaging change, I think, don't invest in this particular level, this important layer. And when we talk about project failure, this is not one report. I've put together a whole bunch of reports into this kind of table here, and this is always good to do in a group. And I would ask the question: unrealistic goals were set in the highest composite percentage failure. Who's responsible for that? And you would probably say it's the project sponsor, of course. That's quite easy. And poor alignment of project and organisation objectives, usually you get a good response there. That's the project sponsor. Inadequate human resources at the highest level, that's the project sponsor. Lack of strong leadership. Well, this is where we start to see the two worlds coming together of the sponsor and project manager, because it is a joint responsibility. Leadership through the sponsor, leadership through the project manager are both clear. And then thinking about team members identifying issues and kind of being honest, really. That's down to the project manager. And ineffective risk management inside the project is definitely project manager. But as I said, this is not one report, there's a number of reports I put together just to create this kind of composite view. My point about this slide when I speak to it is that sponsor is really important. The project manager is important. The project manager is critical to a project. But the sponsor is equally critical and has high influence on the success or failure of the projects, as we can see from this particular slide. And if you remember the 3 numbers I spoke about last week that summarised the world of now borrowing the age of the accidental sponsor, it's 85, 83, 100. 85%. It was a business research that I did for a book. And we found 85% of companies had in place. If you remember, 83% of those companies did absolutely nothing to help train or guide their project sponsors, just expect them to do the job as if by magic. And yet everybody, 100%, thought it was really important to have a good project sponsor in place to ensure project success. This is the craziness of the world that we live in right now, in many, many cases. Not every company, for sure, but in many cases. So the reality is that good project sponsorship is important. Everyone believes it's critical, it seems, and yet sponsors are not trained. So I'm using that term very, very loosely. They are not skilled. They don't have the experience in order to be effective. They don't have the time to be effective. They believe that they have a workload that is far too significant in other areas. And remember, we talked last week about the people who were executive sponsors didn't see sponsorship as the job. They thought everything else was the job. And being project sponsors was like an added annoyance, in some cases, an extra demand on their time. And sponsors are just expected to know how to do the job as if by magic. And this is why I believe we're in the age of the sponsor. So what is a sponsor really? I mean, the project sponsor, or there's a term in the UK, it's quite common, senior reporting officer. I mean, they are the owner of projects on behalf of the organisation, and it's important for many reasons why every project should have a sponsor, because there's this kind of separation of decision-making responsibilities, project manager and project sponsor. You can't, one person can't do it all. It's just not practical. It's accountability for the realisation of project benefits. This is down to private sponsor. I mean, I know more and more these days project managers are getting dragged into this benefit realisation towards the end of a project, but it is ultimately the responsibility of the sponsor. The project management function, well, it's not that it's a policing activity, but it's making sure that the project manager is heading in the right direction, that everything is right for them, that the process is working well, the relationship is working well, and this carrying out of senior stakeholder management. I mean, this cannot be done by a project manager. No matter how well connected the project manager is, or how knowledgeable they are of the business, there is going to be some stakeholders at a higher level that only an executive project sponsor can actually manage. And I think that if you think about the two main differences between a sponsor and a project manager, I always try and make things as simple as possible. It seems to work for people when I do this, but in project sponsor, when you think about how they act, they are the sponsors about identification of the project, definition of the project, and the project manager is about the planning of the project and the delivering of the project. In very simple terms. If you think about ownership, the project sponsor owns the business case and owns the risks at the highest level, the overall risks of the project, and the project manager owns the project plan and if you like, the in-project risks or the impact risks on the project. And in real terms, the project sponsor should continue working long after the project manager is finished, because the project manager is to the point of project closure, what that actually means in your own organisation, because it can vary, obviously, what project closure. As I said, I've seen more and more kind of final benefits assessment is being done in project closure phase, led by the project manager, but really to the point of project closure, kind of a job well done. Releasing the team, recording closure, doing the project closure, review, report, close out meeting, all those sort of things. But the point of really, and this is one that just doesn't seem to happen very often, but they should really be at the point of the benefits achieved. The point of when the actual business case either delivers a variance of what it was originally intended to do, or perhaps doesn't deliver anything at all, and lessons are learned from that. So fundamentally, it is a very different role and a very important role, and is, as we saw in one definition last week, was the fact that the project sponsor is the senior, ultimate responsible person for the project representing the business, and the project manager isn't. It's a very different role. I don't know if you looked at it, but I did report briefly about the sponsorship checklist that was put together, and I did post that on the group. So if you want to have a look at that, I'm not intending to go into any detail, because we could spend the rest of the hour that we have arguing about what should and shouldn't be in a sponsorship checklist. But this is a head start for you. It's a thought provoker for you. It might work, it might not. You probably want to change the language. You probably think there's more important things and less important things. It's yours. Just go to the group, and you'll find this one added to the summary of last week's session. And I also found that that you need a balanced sponsor to be truly effective. So they've got to be involved in the project. I remember I talked about the good way of gauging their involvement or belief, if you like, in the project was to ask them, what they hoped for this project and what their concerns were for the project. Because a sponsor who's truly keen to get involved will have that kind of appreciation of what they see the benefits of the project are and what the risks are to the project. Because right at the very beginning, that is, because they will be, to a degree, passionate about it. So you want a sponsor to be involved. You want them to be supportive of what's going on, to be there for you. Again, there is no point in a sponsor being completely remote from what's going on. Doesn't want to get involved in anything. Doesn't want to help when you have some of the challenges. And you also need a sponsor who's reactive. So again, there's no point in having, if you like, the best project sponsor as far as power, influence, and senior stakeholder, if you like, impact, if you can't get a meeting with them for next fortnight, next 2 weeks out. I mean, because if you have a problem or a challenge, then you need them to be reactive. It doesn't mean it's genius, but they should recognise that when you go to them with a challenge, that it is important and you need their help. Finally, and this is something the project managers really need to get their head around, is the sponsors need to be objective, which means they're not only interested in the projects that they are sponsoring, they are aware of all the other projects. And there may well come a time when, for the greater good of the organisation and that objective point of view, they may well have to make some tough decisions for their own project. Slow down, reallocate resources across, whatever it may be. So this is the concept of the balanced sponsor, that they are involved, supportive, reactive, and objective all together. And this is it's just a dashboard view. I'm not recommending any particular tool here, but this is something that just suddenly struck me. I was asked by actually a technology company. I was asked to go and look at their dashboard, their portfolio dashboard, and I spent a happy day there, and they were showing me all the new functionality and what it looked like. And it was all very, 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 very good. Very attractive, very sexy. Nice tool. But they I think it was towards the afternoon lunch break, coffee break rather. They said, "Is there anything you would like to see?" And I said, "Well, yeah. Can you show me?" I said, "Because we've looked at this in many ways. Show me the dashboard view by project sponsor." And they just looked at me like I was mad. And they're like, "Well, no one's ever asked for that before." And I thought, "Well, why not? If a CEO, for example, is looking at their organisational change, i.e. they're looking at their project landscape, their portfolio, and this is allocated across a number of project sponsors, why would you not want to see it by project sponsor? And to be fair to this organisation, because this is the nature of these modern tools, they very quickly created a project sponsor category, they quickly put some data in for me, and they very quickly spun a display that did exactly what I want. It was very simple to do. I mean, it took them, probably 15 minutes. But the fact that nobody seems to ask for this is quite an insight, really, because why not? You can look, you go into organisations and it's done by, project manager, it's done by product, it's done by region, it's done by value. There are many ways of looking at this. Register the project sponsor on these sort of things, and maybe that's a fear or concern of exposure, because wouldn't that be great to be able to see the portfolio under a particular sponsor, see how that portfolio is doing versus the other part of the portfolio under another project sponsor, and so on. I mean, that seems like, wow, that would be brilliant. And I have no idea. I'm going to make it into this little chat about is that something you've seen in your own organisations? Because I think it should be the default setting. You should look at your projects by project sponsor. And the challenge, because I could get onto this, and it's an area I have been actively involved in, is that, look, it's not the sponsor's fault. We know that they don't get project sponsorship, because nobody's going to get project sponsorship, and particularly they probably haven't had a project background at all. A number of these senior executives just have not gone through any sort of project experience themselves. And so it's not their fault. But they are, as that little graphic there says, they are too cool for school. They are not going to go to a classroom. They're not going to go to a training course in simple sense. I mean, I joke when I do presentations about, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could get to interview, as a project manager, get to interview the project sponsor you work with and ask them to know what it is and their experience, and then say, I'm very sorry, I don't think you're ready for my project. Can I see the next candidate, please? But listen, why don't you take a training course, and next time I start a project, let's talk again about whether you're ready to be a project sponsor. And the project managers in the audience love that. Of course they do, but it's never going to happen. Project sponsors should be in place already. But sponsors are too cool for school. So how do you even go about developing project sponsorship? Well, this is the model I put together to kind of map this out. Because the one thing, this is not going to work head on. This is not going to work in a hard, confrontational way. And I think you also have to tackle project managers and sponsors together. So the way I found this has worked, and I've worked in 3 organisations so far where this has shown benefit. The first thing is you have a very open workshop with the sponsors themselves, and you're not challenging them individually on their capabilities. You're not pointing and going, you're a bad sponsor, or you're a good sponsor, or you're mediocre, you've room for improvement. What you do is you talk about the value of project sponsorship. You talk about some of the challenges to other organisations have seen. You lean towards the research from PMI, from PwC, from Gartner and companies like that. And from that, you build a position, like a recognition inside the organisation that there is value in project sponsorship, there is value in professionalising project sponsorship, and there is an agreement that a plan will be developed to develop project sponsorship internally. You do not identify anybody in that group as being strong or weak. Well, you do quietly in the background, but you don't report it, obviously. And then the next thing that typically works is to have a session with the project managers to talk about what their experiences are, a kind of an issue session. What problems do you face in regard to project sponsorship inside your organisation? From that, you then get this kind of sponsorship model, which is what it should look like, what this company believes sponsorship should be, kind of like the checklist a little bit more to it. Then you move into some training for the project management community, where you talk about the sponsor project management partnership, how to deal with certain types of project sponsors, the absence of a project sponsor, the micromanaging project sponsor, etc. It's kind of like recognizing that development of sponsors is going to take some time, but in the meantime, let's empower the project management community to be more successful than they have been, and to have an avenue for challenge, coming to you for some guidance. So this follows this trend, this ongoing support over a period of time. Like, well, you have a problem, well, come to me, come to your PMO, or whatever we agree as part of the sponsorship model is. Then we'll be here to help you. We'll be here to support you with the challenges in your projects today. And over on the sponsor side, coaching is what seems to work. Each sponsor is given, half a day coaching, where it may be, in hourly chunks. And, typically what I found is that in those one-to-one private sessions, they may well go, open up a little bit more about, well, okay, I'm not feeling particularly confident about this or this aspect of project sponsorship. And from this coaching approach, then you can begin to develop them. And at the end of all this, then you kind of have an assessment of, well, we've gone from this original state, so where are we now as far as this maturity of sponsorship is concerned? I think you decide, what's going to happen for the next 3-6 months, because typically this first one takes place over probably about a 6-month period. I mean, the workshop and all the sponsorship modeling and the training, that all happens very quickly right at the front end. But then you need a bit of time for sponsors to go through the coaching process and for the project managers to continue to evolve their understanding of project sponsorship. But whatever, you find a point which is the point, you track out what's working, what's not working, and you decide what happens in the next 3 months, 6 months, and so forth. And that personally for me has worked, I believe. I've seen some value from that. It's almost like a softly approach. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to close this down and bring back the screen. Very quiet this week.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Peter. This is Gerald. You were asking earlier if I've seen listed by sponsor. No, I've not. It was more like listed by portfolio name. Regulatory risk or growth or whatever, and don't think the sponsor was part of it.
No, and I think that's the thing. It's almost, I mean, it shouldn't be. It should be a very positive thing, but unfortunately, things do have a blame structure sometimes. Like, how can we get to who the root cause is, who is the scapegoat? I feel in some cases, and I do feel that it should be, in a very positive way, it should be the first view by project sponsor, because that's the way the organisation is dealing with it. I think, in the sense of you are allocating responsibility to these people, so why not look at how their projects are doing? Anybody else have experiences of those sort of portfolio tools and how you actually look at it? Does anybody track my sponsor?
Tarek had a question on chat.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay. I need to open that up. Sorry. Let me just go to chat. Okay. Thank you for that. Well, do you see obligations which differ greatly between agile and traditional project management methodologies? It's an interesting one, but in principle, no. I mean, I see, it does depend on the level of governance that you've got in place for your projects, to how much formality. The checklist, it talks about steering committee meetings, etc. I mean, I think even on agile projects, there's still a degree of that going on. They're probably less, perhaps. I still think the principles are the same, but I do believe that you definitely have to take that kind of checklist and nurture it into your own organization's language structure and relevance. You don't want to put down a blank checklist and just just adopt that. That isn't going to work. You have to make it your own. It has to fit the culture and the governance of your own organization. That's my view anyway. Unless anybody else has other views on agile sponsorship?
Yes, Peter, this is John. I guess the one comment I would have on sponsorship that I see is for smaller projects, the sponsor, kind of puts it off and puts it off and puts it off. And, maybe it's off into the twilight, or it comes back, a year later or 6 months later, and at that time it has to be totally redone. My impression is they don't understand all the work that goes into these projects and getting them ready. And, with any whatever, they're very easy to say, well, we'll just push that off and save the money. Any comment?
Yeah, right. No, I've had a personal experience where I ran it was only a 3-month project, but I met the project sponsor at the start, and then they were basically busy until the end of the project. And you carry on as best you can in that situation, but the reality was when we got to the end, they came in for the the kind of final review, and they challenged many of the decisions that have been made throughout, which was just very frustrating because they just hadn't been available. I think, I have a couple of thoughts in that area, because some people talk to me about, well, there are situations where the sponsor is either doesn't exist in some cases, or they just aren't interested. And I think at a certain degree, if you have a PMO, they can step in and fill the gap a little bit, not everything, but they can help. But the fact there's still this issue with the fact if the sponsor is not in any way involved in the project, and it's kind of back to this model. If they're not involved in the project and they're not supportive of the project in the right ways, and they're not reactive to your needs, then you are either going to be incredibly lucky and not have any problems at all, or you are going to struggle. It's more likely to be the latter one, I think. Again, anybody else got any thoughts on that one?
Coming back to the unbalanced sponsor.
Yeah, sure.
It's quite an interesting one, really, because I think I would have had it slightly differently. I think I would have had responsiveness as being important, but we'd also find our most success when we have active sponsors. Those sponsors who are making the call rather than being pushed or being chased to do it. I kind of put, if the way I broke that down is that if they're involved and they're supportive, they're going to be proactive. There's kind of an assumption in that, but the fact is they're also it was seen in sort of the research I did was that it was seen. They were a good sponsor when they reacted quickly when there was a need for them to react. So I think you do want them to be proactive. I think you want to have a very
positive approach to the situation, and consider things much like as a project manager does, which is like considering what's coming up and trying to anticipate and all that kind of thing. But the reactive was that when you need them, they are there for you. That's what I was kind of getting at.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes back probably to my frustration, because I've had a number of projects in the past where I've had project sponsors who've been anything but reactive for me. I mean, they've been very polite when I've had meetings with them, but kind of like the one I described, that short project, the fact that when I needed to get to the project sponsor, I was blocked due to their ridiculous diary and their availability and their lack of belief in this was a priority in any way for them, and yet they had the authority and the power to just almost trash the end results of the project, even though they had been completely absent throughout.
Yeah, absolutely. We've certainly been in positions like that ourselves, where we've been held to account, if you like, decisions that we've been made, and then when we've said that when we've been questioned about why things haven't been moved, we've been on at least 32 blocking points that were held with the sponsor.
Yeah.
Maybe if you get on these, you might be able to progress a bit faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone last week was talking about the fact that they actually put their project sponsor on the risk statement in the project. That's a very brave person, and it worked in that situation, but it's not something that probably most project managers feel they would like to do from a career point of view.
Hi, Peter. This is Gabrielle. I want to correct that. I never put a project sponsor on the risk, because the project sponsor is not the risk. What is the risk is the issue that is not addressed. And that was on the risk register.
Right. Sorry, Gabrielle. Welcome.
So I think that's really an important differentiation. You cannot put a project sponsor on the risk.
Right. No.
But you can say that there's a lack, that a decision has not been made in that area, and because of that, there's a risk to the project.
Okay, I got it. I apologize. Thank you for correcting me on that one.
So I think that's a major difference.
Yeah, that is a major difference. I stand well corrected on that one. It is a much significant difference, and it's kind of like Laura, your points about the the blockers, etc. As you move through the project, of registering those step by step as being these are issues, etc. that are are adding to the risk of the project.
Yeah, and why that is so important is because a person should never be a risk on a project. It is really the lack of something that is the risk, the task. It has to be project related, not person related.
Right, absolutely. Although I think, and you wouldn't put it on a risk, but I do think, when understanding your project sponsor as much as you can, and that getting that understanding, talking to managers who've worked with them, it is a kind of almost a risk profile you have in your head of how what's likely to be for you, and how you actually have to think about compensating for a project sponsor that doesn't seem to necessarily know what they should be doing, or doesn't do it in a particularly good way. You wouldn't write it down, but you certainly, I think, consider that. And whereas it's like a lot of your stakeholder assessments. What are the strengths and weaknesses of these individuals, and the project sponsor is something you'll just do quietly in your own mind. Okay. Projects. I'd love to hear some good stuff. I mean, this all comes out a bit negative. I think it's a bit real as well, but there must be some great sponsors out there. There'd be some opportunities, and that's one question. And also, I laid out the kind of maturity path for a project sponsor. Is that something anybody else has seen inside organisations, actually, where they are working to develop project sponsors to a higher professional level?
I've never. This is Tarek. I've never seen in the industrial organizations I've worked in where there has been any training for sponsors. It's always been on the project managers and the project members, how to use tools, and maybe what the corporate process is for getting approvals and decisions. But the assumption seems to be that if you've risen to the sea level or sub-sea level, then you're magically endowed with sponsorship abilities, which we know isn't true.
No, we know that, but we'd also know these are smart people. So it's almost doubly frustrating that that's the case, and they don't necessarily recognise that this is a weakness for them, and maybe that's down to just what it should actually be. But the problem is, how do you say that? Because they're not going to go on a training course. They're not going to go and see a presentation about being a good prospect. They're not going to go read a book about this. There's quite a few books out there that they could read, but I think it's highly unlikely that they're going to do that. And we could all wait quite a few years, and eventually, as I said, people would move through the organisation to those positions who may well have a project background and will be perhaps better suited. But there's an awful lot of huge investment in projects across the world in the meantime, probably the next 20 years before that actually is going to happen. So
may I just, an assumption, I just have come off 2 calls where there were actually well-functioning PMOs in place.
Mm-hmm.
And what both of them were basically indicating to me that in both cases they were also satisfied with their project sponsors. So it is almost like if project sponsors have the foresight to implement a PMO and project managers can be successful within that PMO, that is also then reflecting on the project sponsors. Yes.
So whenever, and I've helped build 5 PMOs so far in my career, and in each one, the PMO has adopted an attitude of support to the project managers. I mean, along with all the other things that PMO do, and we have stepped in when there have been challenges. Some of those challenges have been around the weaknesses of project sponsorship. So that's one thing. We're kind of trying to fill a little bit there. But secondly, certainly in more recent PMOs that I've been involved in, we have also attempted to educate the organisation about projects. We've done that in 2 areas. One is, working with people who are not project-based, but just explain to them, projects for non-project managers, and also trying to elevate the conversation to project sponsorship and guiding the project sponsor community to kind of better levels. We've done through that through many means. I mean, apart from sessions, if you like, education to a degree, conversations more likely, engaging with sponsors, behaviour, good projects, celebrating good project sponsor and project manager successes. But we've also done that by trying to build that methodology to a degree as well. Yes, I agree. I think it can make a difference. A well-functioning PMO can make a difference. And if an organisation, whether it be the sponsors themselves or whatever part of the organisation sanctions a PMO, PMO in a good position to take that and help improve projects. That includes the area of sponsorship. So, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think you need a breakthrough that collectively the executive understands there is a value in this. And the tough thing is, I mean, you can't really use this, but it's a company is not going to hire a chief financial officer who does not have some sort of accountancy and finance background. So and they're in charge of a lot of money. Well, your sponsors are in charge of a lot of money as well. So why would you put them in a position where they have no skills to be able to do that? But as I mentioned earlier, you can't point the finger internally. All you can do is point externally. Look, this is the consequence. It's kind of like some of the things I mentioned last week about the percentage of be a complete risk with investing in project sponsors. You need to reach out, I think, to some of those standards and reports and articles out there that kind of showcase the value of project sponsorship. Get the attention at the executive level. This is worth investing in, at least starting a conversation, and from there you can take it down a route along the lines of the maturity model I talked about. Has anybody else worked on a PMO that's worked with project sponsors in that way?
I was a PMO, but no. However, we were kind of lucky that at least the sponsors did show up at the steer course. That's worth a lot, and that's where the decisions were made. So they didn't come back later and said, "Why was this decision made?"
No. Yep, well, that's something. That's a start. You know, the worst ones are the ones that are either just nominated as a name, or they are just actively involved in the business case and then disappear, possibly until the end of the project. So that's really not that good.
Peter, I have a question. This is Tarek again. My environment is as a consultant in IT telecom, and our target, my group, our target market is small to medium enterprise. So these are smaller companies that IT and telecom is not their core business. So they may have a part-time person or somebody full-time who does the day-to-day IT type stuff. But then they would call us in if they're upgrading a phone system or migrating to a different type of network technology, something like that. And I'm thinking, I think you wrote the accidental project manager. I think there may be accidental project sponsors. And I'm wondering, that's why I asked about a checklist, or somebody asked about a checklist last week. When I go into a client site, and when I plan to go into a client site, I'd like to have something that if this is the first time they're dealing with consultants on this type of thing, I'd like to give them some background material, at least to set the parameters or a border, so that expectations are reasonably well understood. Of course, it will flesh out as the project progresses, but I don't want to give them a bunch of PMI or other articles to read. Any suggestions, thoughts?
Well, I think anybody else before I jump in?
It's Laura. I've actually produced like a sponsor checklist as well, but it was more aimed at people who really hadn't done a lot of working with sponsors before, and it's about questions to consider asking of your sponsor in that initial meeting, just to find out a bit about their experience. And I'm happy to share that with the group if anybody's interested.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, if it's possible, or if you can post it onto the group forum, that would be brilliant. Just so we could, that'd be really good. And that's that's something we like. If anybody comes up with anything during the call or even after the calls that you think would be useful, to just get on the forum and share it and help each other that way. But I think, I mean, from my own experience, I've seen a couple of organisations that created just a 2-page, they call it a sponsor charter. It's a simple description of what a sponsor's role is, and a simple follows that they use as a starting point, I think, for the kind of conversation you talk about, Tarek, of like, just this is a standard sort of charter for what we're looking for, and to have one for the project manager as well, and so it's not just picking on one particular role. But it's like, are you comfortable with this? It gives a basis for that first conversation. So that's something that you might consider creating. It's almost, I think it's got to be it's more descriptive than prescriptive, I feel. It's got to be, again, sort of another challenging document. It's like this is a typical sponsor. Are you comfortable with that kind of conversation?
Yeah, I like that idea, and then I think it was Laura. Questions to ask. Of course, that would be. You do that as part of the initial engagement. Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. What else on project sponsorship? Has anyone else got anything they'd like to raise or questions, or we can move on to anything anybody else wants to ask in any topic, really?
Yeah, Peter, is there kind of a chart or something when you look at why projects fail? Where would project sponsors be on that track or that chart?
Sorry, John, you were hard to hear then. Could you do that again?
Yeah, sorry. If you look at why projects fail, and you had a chart or something, maybe there's already something you're aware of that has that, where would project sponsors fall on that chart of why projects fail? Would they be on the chart? Would they make the graph at all?
Okay. I'm sorry, John. I'm struggling to hear you there. Can you put that in chat, possibly? Unless anybody else is a bit clearer and would like to respond to John on that one. I'm just getting some breakup at the moment, so I apologise for that. Hopefully John is writing that down in the chat so he can answer his question.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
I think the question was I think I'm hearing this right, John. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the question was if you had a chart about why projects went wrong, where would project sponsors be on that chart?
Ah, right. Okay.
Is that
yes.
right?
Thank you. Yes, and I've also just seen John's chat on that one. So thanks, for clarifying that one. I think hi. I mean, I think I showed you that composite one, which showed that effectively the responsibilities of project sponsors was significant when it came to project success or failure. I think that in many cases projects are successful despite the sponsors that are in place, and probably could be more successful if they had a good project sponsor. There are some reports. I think there was a PwC one I saw. There may well be a Gartner one, if I remember rightly, which actually does point to the sponsor as being a significant cause of, the good or bad project sponsor being a significant contributor to the successful failure of projects, and therefore they would rank quite high on the reasons why projects fail, I believe. I'll take another look after this call. I'll take a look and see what is new in the published market on that one. Unless anybody else has something they've seen recently at all.
I would agree. I always see project sponsors on IT projects and being high up either for succeeding or failing. The other comment I have is with COVID, we have seen some record implementations and successful implementations here in Canada, like helping a 9,000 people call center to work from home within 8 weeks, moving stock exchanges to work remotely. And I'm wondering if from those successes we can also learn what the different project sponsors made in those implementations.
I think there are going to be some
actually did to allow the project team to be so successful.
Yeah, I think it's this. I think there's going to be some incredibly interesting insights to come when we have time to reflect on what's going on. Just answering John's question there, the fact that yes, if we had this sort of analysis, then it's another empowerment of the conversation of the value of good project sponsors, the investment in project sponsors, and I think the better. As far as the lessons learned at the moment, it comes back down to being involved. There is a compelling event going on here which requires people's attentions and to take it seriously, and I think for the successes that are going on in the project world, and there are many thousands around the world right now, I think it's the fact that there is this impetus. There is it's almost like there is now instantaneously balanced sponsors because they are having to be supportive, they are involved because it's critical, they are reactive because it's critical, and well, hopefully they're objective as well. But I think the in-project thing is all those are coming to play, and there are no excuses now of like when I have other things to do.
I can tell you that Frosty have a huge amount of data about how vital it is to project success. They found that over the last 17 years that good sponsorship has been the outstanding #1 factor in every single year for project success. But if you look on the Frosty website, there's a wealth of information about how important sponsorship is, including loads of data and tables and things like that can help sway the leadership, if you like, onto how important sponsorship actually is to the project.
Oh, brilliant. Right, thanks, Laura. Worth taking a look at, absolutely. Whether it be sponsorship or not?
Well, this is about maybe a future topic.
Okay, love that. I love that.
I was wondering if you have some sort of checklist for when we start the project, because there's a lot of stuff that is not in any documentation. That's more of based on experience, because I think I saw somewhere where it said it's most important that you find the right questions to be answered, what the project is about and things, you know. I mean, more about that. I mean, beyond project charter and stuff like that, that's everyone knows about. But also, if there's like, you know, what questions do you ask yourself or at the beginning of a project?
Yeah, I'm happy to cover that one. I mean, you know, it is, you know, if we go back to the dinosaur and it's the front end of that dinosaur that is all about project the right way. I'm happy to cover that off. And if it has any other topics they'd like to cover, then please let me know. And you know, if anybody wants to kind of lead a conversation as well, that's certainly something I'm more than open to. It doesn't have to be me talking every week, and hopefully it won't be me talking every week at the beginning. I definitely want people to come up and you know, showcase their experiences and their challenges. Okay. Last chance for anything else. Joel, thanks for that. I'll note of that, and yeah, we'll kick off with that one next week. I'm happy to do that. If not, then I'm always happy to not take up any more of your time, as long as you found it valuable. Hopefully everybody is already a member of the Working Smarter group. If you're not, then do join the group. It helps keep the conversations going. If you have things you want to share afterwards through the group forum, then please do so. And of course, if you like what's going on, please feel free to share with your peers, your colleagues, your friends, and let's build the tribe to even greater levels. So thank you for your time this evening, and I'll look forward to speaking to you all next week. Thanks a lot.
Thanks
Bye.
very much.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.